Yes, guys, welcome back to the Weekly Insight. We're on episode 32, and after a very exhausting week last week, we're back with some more news. Most of it is going to still be obviously talking about the FTX kind of stuff and everything surrounding that. But yeah, let's dive into it, obviously with Will. Do you want to say a
What
quick hello?
yeah, I just want to say, like I talked about in the newsletter a bit, even though I've written about actually so much because I found some really interesting stuff out this week, and the actual news section of the week has kind of just been like waiting for the dust to settle from what's happening with FTX, hasn't it?
Yeah, Will was just running me through what he's been speaking about in the newsletter. It's He's got a lot for you. There's a lot in this week's episode, a lot of useful information, and it kind of helps people almost like navigate the market in this mess kind of thing. But like you said, we're still everything like feel like most of the news that's been coming out around Twitter is still surrounding the FTX saga with Binance, etc., all that kind of stuff. And news comes out every day in terms of like repercussions, how it's affecting other companies and stuff like that. So there's a
Well,
lot
everyone,
still going on, but we'll start with some non-FTX news because I'm sure everyone's bloody bored of just hearing about it. Um, we've got this pretty big news actually that broke here. Circle integrates Apple Pay for existing merchants. I can't remember. Did we speak about this in? I don't know if it was obviously it weren't last week, but maybe the week before because I think we had something or someone else was integrating like their service with Apple Pay anyway.
yeah,
But Circle,
might have been
massive company
Coinbase
here.
actually. Might have been Coinbase,
Was
but
it?
I
Was
don't
it
know.
Coinbase? It was. I feel like it was someone. It was
Yeah,
someone big anyway, but nonetheless, we've got Circle now allowing it so customers will be able to purchase like obviously crypto at the touch of a button. Like I think this is what I mean. I vaguely remember saying this in another episode, but and
yeah,
I think also in this article they also say that they're also working on alternative payment methods, so not just Apple Pay, for example, like PayPal, etc. They'll be introducing all that kind of stuff as well, if they haven't already. But again, this just kind of covers a point which we say every week now, or it feels like that companies are making it easier for people to get involved, purchase
yeah.
crypto, bridge the gap between fiat and crypto again. But it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, I think that's like going to be a massive thing for the future. Like again, these rails are there now. All that needs to happen is like people need to hear about it, and as soon as like some speculation comes back in, everyone's going to be able to access things like this and use it in day-to-day life. Like imagine like
That's
this time
what,
last year or the year before trying to be able to spend like USDC through Apple Pay or whatever.
that's what I mean. How easy it would have been, like if we had this, say if we had these rails, like you said, in the previous bull run, who knows what the price could have got to? Would it have had a bit more of an impact? Probably. I would have said so, definitely, because a lot of people got put off, especially because there's still people still don't really trust crypto, especially back like last year or year before, and a lot of people like retail investors, especially just from my personal experience from talking to people like they can't be bothered. They can't be bothered to deal with like the long process of depositing, your bank blocking payments, etc. But now we've got stuff like this. It's just going to make stuff a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely.
And like I said I can't remember what episode it was on. When next bull run happens, it's just going to be an absolute snowball effect. People are just going to be able to dive into the market a lot easier, deposit their fiat a lot easier, and the rest will speak for itself in terms of like how that translates into price action. You'll see what happens there.
Definitely.
But all that I'd say is it's going to be explosive. That's why I think the next bull runs is going to be extra explosive, just because of things like this, how easy it is,
Yeah,
how easy people have
and
made it.
and I want to just say like a little teaser on the newsletter. One of the things that I actually wrote in there was about the potential. I'm not going to give the statistics or anything, but the potential for an exponential upside, like a huge upside on this next bull run. And then I also like quoted saying, like, is this the bull run that we're setting up for mass adoption? And like with these sorts of bits of news from like Circle, Starbucks, like we definitely talked about someone else integrating Apple Pay, some sort of exchange. It was like maybe 2 weeks ago, if not three. Like these things, if you take all the bad news away from the crypto market at the minute and look what's being built behind all these, like all these different Web 2 and like everyday interaction, like banking services, they're all like enabling people to be able to use Web 3. So when we get that spark back in the market, this could be the cycle that we see huge adoption for cryptocurrency, like integrated into everyday life in some way.
Mm. No, I definitely agree. I agree. But one thing that's still hindering us a little bit in terms of mass adoption are our favourite friends on this channel, the SEC.
Shout out,
I
Gary.
feel like this particular, our guy Gather. We've not spoken about Gather in a long time, have we? On this weekly roundup, but
Oh, just quickly, did you see
uh,
that John Deaton's got like 8,000 signatures on a thing to basically say sack Gary Gensler or whatever? On
was
like
it
a
about
petition,
8,000? How much does it
yeah.
like need to get their attention?
I think it's 10.
Is it? Because I know obviously in England, like when someone makes a petition like this, if they get over a certain amount of like sign-ups, they have to look at it, as in like Congress in
Yeah.
America will have to look at it, kind of thing. But that'll be interesting because 8,000, that's a lot. That's a lot of people, to be fair,
Yeah,
saying
no.
that you should resign. But they know this anyway, bro. It's like they know people don't like the SEC, so that they should be addressing it anyway. But
Yeah, I
that's another
agree.
topic for another episode. But
I agree.
this has been dragging on for a while now. I think I feel like we spoke about it on multiple episodes now, whether it be ARC21 shares, Bitcoin ETF application, or someone else's ETF application. But 2 more months, as you can see here, they've delayed it. I think the new date is like January 27th of 2023. Now they've got to make a decision on whether they're gonna, accept this ARC21 shares Bitcoin ETF application or not. But the reason I've included it in, just because it's not breaking news of any sort, but the reason I've included it in is because it kind of, sparks that thought in my head again. Are they waiting for something? Are they, have they pushed it back? But this is what I said last time, to be fair. But January 27th, it's going to be in 2023. Are they waiting for legislation to come out before they approve certain ETF applications? I'd say yes, because surely they just would have dismissed this now. But have they not dismissed it because they don't want another lawsuit on their case? Like they don't want people after them, kind of thing. So I guess there's two sides to the coin there. But
Yeah,
nonetheless,
it's a hard one for
SEC
sure.
just being SEC again, just delaying. But I think we'll get an answer with this once legislation comes into effect, and I don't think they can expect anything else really.
Yeah, I haven't really got too
But
much to
that's
touch
that.
on that, bro. To be honest, like it's the
Yeah,
same story every time, isn't it, from the SEC?
exactly. That's what I mean. It feels like I'm just repeating myself every week with the SEC. Just like, oh, they're delaying this again, they're delaying that again. But yeah, we'll leave them to it, man. Because like, what can we do about them now? But we'll move on to some other big news actually. Major US banks will be piloting a 12-week CBDC program. So some interesting trialists like Wolves tweeted here are BNY Mellon and Citi, who are the first two on the list. Ripple involvement ? Are they looking at cross-border payments ? Again, it's pure speculation, guys. Don't think we're just trying to moonboy XRP. But
Well, the reason I mentioned them two is because we know that BNY Mellon actually do work with Ripple and have worked with Ripple.
yeah,
They still do. Citi definitely have in the past. I'm not sure if there's still a partnership there. And they do actually specify in the article about cross-border payments. But like, I haven't actually seen too much on this. It's like, this is a huge story in my opinion. But like, it's not really been covered by media much at all.
no, it's not. But we know why it's not been covered, because we've been saying this for months now, literally for the second half of this year. Any good news that comes out at the moment, it just seems to be overshadowed by either negative sentiment, or like this time round we've got the FTX kind of issue going on still, and I think it's going to be like that for at least for the rest of November, potentially into December as well, because we're still getting, like I said at the start, we're still getting news coming out left, right, and centre in terms of this person's folding here, this person was involved here. You've got a lot of YouTube channels. I was scouring YouTube this morning, just catching up with some news kind of thing. And there was one video I watched which was like, they basically were trying to draw in loads of other people who might be involved. So don't be surprised that stories will be coming out in terms of pointing the finger of who's at fault here.
Whoa.
And don't be surprised, we're going to discuss
Yeah,
of other exchanges potentially folding, etc. as well.
Yeah, we are going to dive into this a little bit more deeply with a bit of like, not necessarily conspiracy, but like a few things that I do want to talk about like towards the end on that. But like I just want to say, like, it's not necessarily good news for CBDCs. It's just good for us. If CBDCs come through and they are using the XRPL, then obviously it's good for us. I don't really want a CBDC, but it's inevitable. And I know you're the same. We both have the same sort of views. Like, it's not necessarily the tech that's the problem. It's just the people in power, as we've talked about before.
That's it. That is literally it right there. And I think that's the best way to sum it up at the moment, because people just kind of they put it all as a CBDCs, like a negative, as one big thing. But in reality, it's not the tech, like you said. It's the people who are got the ideas for the tech and how they're gonna control it, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that's the only issue that me and you see, and it's the issue that everyone else sees. But like you said, everyone kind of sees it as one big problem opposed to what actually is the problem underneath. That makes sense. But
Yeah, and I just want to touch actually on that is like the only real comparison we can draw, or like example that we can draw of CBDCs right now, is that of China, and we in the West live very differently to how they live in China, and so everyone's really addressing the negative like aspects of CBDCs and like including their social credit score, etc. Presuming that that's the way we're going to go in the West, and like I don't think you can make that presumption. I'm not saying that we're angels at all, but we don't have a social credit score at the minute. Yes, banking, etc. You can play either side of the argument, whether you want to play speculation or not. But in actual fact, like even though I don't necessarily agree with all this, if you look at the actual facts, like we are pretty like free in on paper. So the CBDC will probably reflect our values at least more openly than like China's CBDC would reflect our Western values, of course. But everyone's drawing that comparison anyway. So
yeah, I mean, you can't blame them for thinking that, because the way that obviously these people who are supposedly going to be in control of all this kind of stuff, the way they act now, and the way things are happening in terms of like, you see PayPal, what they did a few weeks ago, how they were going to charge people for saying the incorrect thing, kind of thing. You can kind of see where it's heading, so you can't really blame people for speculating in that. But that, like you said, there aren't any CBDCs in the Western world, so there's no facts behind people's like theories at the moment. But I'm
yeah,
not saying that's not going to happen, because it could do. Like it probably will, but
but
it's
also the
not it's not an
difference.
absolute certification, is it?
Also, the difference is like even regarding PayPal, like we have the right to be able to reject that, and in China you don't. You're basically going to get thrown in prison if
Yeah,
you reject that. So we have the right, and like we will riot. Like people will riot if that sort of things happen. Like if it goes too far over the line. So I do get why, and like obviously we're massively invested into crypto, into finance in general. Understand the space, and I understand how legacy finance works, and it is, in my opinion, like there's some shady stuff that goes on, but it isn't China, is what I'm trying to say. Not that
yeah,
China
but I'm
are
not.
awful and we're good. It's just like it isn't what you see there, because that is literally highlighting the things that will potentially be a problem for people in the West.
Yeah, I think like you said there as well. I think the Western people would react a lot differently like the way that Chinese people have in the past, kind of thing. Like we would fully riot, because even now, like crypto aside, just the world in general is becoming a bit more like, freedom of speech, a lot more like decentralized, etc. So if you implement a CBDC bang on in the middle of that, controlling people where they can spend, etc., in a really like really negative manner, you think people are just going to put up with that and say, okay, yeah, fair enough?
Yeah,
They're not going to
exactly,
do that. That's just not how
exactly.
people work nowadays. Like people's like mentalities changed a lot over like the past decade or so. So I don't
And
know.
just
Obviously people in charge know this as well. So
Yeah, exactly. Of course they do. And like, just on that though, like one like last little thought is like it is really weird timing that as FTX collapses, everyone's like sentiment towards crypto is in the absolute mud. They release that kind of like when it can go under the radar. It's almost like they've been waiting for something big like that to happen. Boom, will release it like on
mm,
the same day, because what are
mm,
the odds they like coincidentally release that on the same day? Maybe they know that it's going to be uproar, but they also know that like people want to, they need to test it. So
yeah,
it's coming, whatever
we'll just
people think. Like, it doesn't really matter, like, what we say, speculate, whatever. It's going to come because, like, what we've talked about a lot of times, and I've actually gone into huge detail on it in the weekly round, weekly insight in the newsletter is CBDC tech will help the financial system. Like, and whether you like the financial system or not, like, it means that, like, people who are underprivileged can get money, essentially, when they're desperate. And yes, they can use it for nefarious reasons, like we've talked about, but it does mean that people who need the money can get instant salary, instant relief, instant energy tokens, whatever and however they program the token. Obviously, that's where people see the problem, but it also can be a gain, and that is why it's going to be implemented, whether we like it or not.
yeah, exactly. Just to end that, like with everything, there's pros and cons. It's just how they deal with the cons. That's the way I'm seeing it at the moment. Like, and it's just whether the pros really do outweigh the cons in the situation. They need to find the perfect balance. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. Because if they don't, there's going to be a huge uproar. But like I said, they know this, and I don't think they really want to incite that from the public, if I'm honest with you. So
Yeah,
We
yeah,
shall
yeah.
see. We shall see how that happens.
Yeah, and
But
I completely agree.
go on, go on.
No, just saying
Yeah,
I completely agree with everything that you're saying there.
yeah, that's literally it there on that, because I know it's like quite a sensitive topic, but um, we're moving into FTX now because we can't really shy away from the updates that are coming out. This is something not really like breaking news really, because I think a lot of people have been speculating this, but like we said last week, we expected stuff like this to come out over the course of this week. I still expect it to come out over the course of the next 4 weeks, or however long it takes for it to be uncovered, kind of thing. But crypto lender BlockFi is preparing for imminent bankruptcy, citing FTX collapse. Just it's obviously not great to see. Obviously we expected it, so I guess it's not too much of a shock. But it just shows like how many big exchanges, etc., are going to be affected by this FTX collapse.
Yeah, well, I mean, like
And
BlockFi and like Voyager are pretty obvious because FTX
yeah,
literally bailed them out in it. So they
exactly. So
if they
everyone,
were
yeah,
yeah, go on. If they're insolvent a month ago, then obviously they're still insolvent now without
still would be.
FTX's money. But we have actually,
Mm.
I did see. I don't know if this. I didn't see like too much backing this up, but I did see a few tweets about people saying that there were a lot of bidders coming in for. I think it was BlockFi's like debit card users, because I think BlockFi have their own like rewards card, and there was a lot of people coming in for BlockFi's customers, so that actually could save or potentially save BlockFi. We don't know like how
Yeah,
many other people out there were waiting to scoop these companies up, and FTX just
yeah,
came in with a better offer. That's another thought for this like little process.
yeah. Just to add to that as well, I saw a tweet earlier. I should have actually included it in it. But similar thing happening with obviously Voyager's assets as well. Like they've got people bidding for their assets at the moment as well. So there are buyers out there. There are, hopefully this time round they're just a lot more like, transparent and better investors. If better is a correct word to use, but as long as they're not SBF version 2 kind of thing, and they don't just do it for personal gain, and they're actually doing it for the longevity of like an investment, or for crypto in general.
Yeah, agreed.
But that's not the only kind of bad news. There's obviously other news around this. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. But just on the back here, like a wallet address linked to Huobi Exchange was found transferring 10,000 ETH to a Binance and OKX deposit soon after releasing its asset snapshot. So we've had a lot of like, crypto firms and exchanges specifically release like their assets kind of thing, just to kind of show that, okay, we're not FTX, we're different. We've got it backed up with this here. Look, have a look at our assets, kind of thing. But some stuff like this is happening here. So we've obviously got Huobi. They released a snapshot, and then shortly after they transferred 10,000 ETH to, like I said, their Binance and OKX deposit wallet. Is what else is going to be happening there? Obviously, Will's got another good point. Why Huobi are under pressure? Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, so like with the release of Huobi's balance sheet, it seems that their second biggest crypto holding is Tron, like TRX token, and somehow the founder of Tron came with some kind of deal with SBF, so Sam Bankman-Fried at FTX, even after the FTX collapse, that they could, like, people who held Tron on FTX could take it out. This led to a massive spike in the Tron price on FTX only. It went from like 6 cents to like $2, $2.50. But then when they drew it out to sell it on another exchange, you can only sell it for 6 cents. That's actually what it's worth. But like, my questions are like, how the hell did he come up with a deal like that? How is he only allowed to withdraw from FTX when no one else is? It's all a bit weird. Like, I don't really get that part of it. But it does put Huobi and other people holding Tron under pressure, because it means that a lot of people are going to be putting all their assets into Tron, transferring the Tron over to somewhere else, and selling it on that other market, then providing sell pressure for Tron, the asset. And then if Huobi already have issues, this could be a reason why they had issues anyway, is because it's essentially hitting them like a bank run, because their second biggest reserves in Tron.
Yeah, this stuff like this needs to. It's the reason we're in this position right now, and now you've got Huobi getting hit with like a double whammy kind of thing. But stuff like this needs to get sorted out, and it just brings us back to the point that I said last week. This obviously what's going on right now, short term's not good for crypto, but if it's going to get rid of people doing stuff like this, even with the Tron thing that you mentioned there, we need to filter players who are moving like that out of the space, because it just hurts not only investors, etc. It hurts like we can see here, Huobi, who are going to get hit hard. But and it's almost like a bit of a shout out for, or a cry for help in terms of like legislation as well. Like I said, I'm open with it as well. a lot of people are against, like, people like legislation getting involved with crypto because they want it to remain completely decentralized. But you need this is what you get. This is literally first-hand experience here, showing you this is what happens when there's little to no like legislation within the space, kind of thing. So I think over the next like year or so, once like we get like a decent framework drawn up, etc., events like this are less likely to happen. Yes, they might still happen here and there, kind of thing. We still get issues in traditional finance like markets, but it's a cry for help, in my opinion, anyway, in terms of like getting a bit of legislation and structure to the space, basically.
Yeah, I agree.
But we'll move on because now we're going to swiftly move on to CZ here. So I'll just quickly read out his tweet here. So, to further reduce the cascading negative effects of FTX, Binance is forming an industry recovery fund to help those projects who are otherwise strong but in a liquidity crisis. So again, CZ trying to come out here, like you said here, even in the tweet, it's like we've almost heard this before, because this is what literally SBF was doing months ago when the capitulation happened in June. He was basically coming out saying, I'm the bailout option here, anyone who's struggling, come to me, kind of thing. And it's kind of what CZ is doing here. Obviously, I'll say what I said back then about SBF. I'm not going to judge CZ yet until something happens, because I'm not just going to say he's SBF like version 2, because I think it's too soon to say that. But on as face value, that's reading that tweet, it provides a bit of confidence to people / companies who are potentially struggling, provides a bit of confidence to us, the retail investors. But yeah, there's still in the back of my head, I can't help but I can't ignore the alarm bell still ringing off, because I feel like I've seen it before. But and like you tweeted there,
and like things that seem too good to be true often are. Like, okay, I want to just quickly point that OKX also did a similar thing with like 100 mil, but want to just get into CZ quickly and on some speculation that you're going to like show another tweet for in 1 second. But one thing that we basically covered was SBF doing this in the past. We said many times on the podcast, cool, it seems good, but things that are too good to be true normally are like, what is his actual motive? And what is CZ's motive here? Is he doing this to save crypto because he likes crypto, or is he doing it to save crypto because Binance are in trouble? Now, if you bring up that next tweet, that takes us nicely into this next tweet, because I just want to keep going on that. We've seen Binance's balance sheets come out this week, and they've got like $69 billion in assets, which sounds like a lot, because it is a blooming lot of money. But when you actually break down those assets, this is obviously on the speculation that Tether's bad. If you think Tether's bad, fair enough. But let's just say it is. It's like 20% Tether, 20% BUSD, or 30% BUSD, and 10% BNB. So that makes like 60-ish% in coins that are like either owned by Binance or are Tether. So BNB is obviously their exchange token. BUSD, something really strange happened with a month or two ago that we talked about on this podcast, which it came out of nowhere, which is basically where anyone who transfers any other stablecoin into Binance that isn't USDT, being Tether, so that includes USDC, goes into like a pool that's automatically converted into BUSD. So we don't actually know how much BUSD they have in reserve. It's just 30% of their balance sheet, and what of that is actually backed by BUSD, and what of that is USDC. We don't know. Like, it's a really strange time for that to be implemented just before this FTX collapse. People looking into stable coins. So with that, it's like 65% of their portfolio, which is like, say, 40 billion, just on the safe side, 45 billion. Between 40 and 50, that means you only need like $20 billion worth of downside pressure onto Binance to be able to cause a bank run on them if their other assets are not necessarily backed properly. So yeah, $20 billion is a blooming lot of money, but it's not impossible. Like, what was FTX worth?
I was going to say, do you think Binance are in potential trouble? Do you think CZ is kind of doing something similar to what SBF was doing like a few months ago, kind of thing?
I think the difference between that and like now and then is that now, like, we're potentially at a bottom with people already have like losing interest. Who's going to come through and put $20 billion worth of pressure on someone to like deleverage stuff?
That's true.
He's got the added benefit of like having a $70 billion portfolio. I don't know what FTX's portfolio was, But the only way that this could happen is what we're talking about here, in my opinion, is like the tweet on screen, Binance's role in the sudden collapse of FTX has come under congressional scrutiny from the bloc. So if Congress then like research into CZ and try and flip this story to get the mud off their face that the American exchange that was actually regulated in the US with the American-born like person running the exchange, who's both his parents lawyers in America, big ties into politicians, if they try and get mud off their face by like pushing this onto CZ, like and China with OKX obviously stepping up to help with Binance as well, they could easily amount to with $20 billion worth of pressure onto Binance. But I only think they do that if they can then save face. Like if they've already got like a regulatory compliant exchange, if they release regulation real quick here and they somehow take the spotlight away from FTX, release or buy up FTX's assets to save the customers, then I think they could pressure Binance out of the market, and all the Binance customers could then come onto like FTX or the US regulatory exchange. And I know that's a lot of conspiracy, but it's possible. Like that, the thing is that it is possible, especially like in crypto, anything's possible. But like at the minute, the US are sitting there with a lot of mud on their face. The only really real regulated exchange in the US, apart from Coinbase obviously being a public stock, Sam Bankman-Fried, like the face of crypto in America and the world, American born, and now he's like a scam artist. Like, what does that look like for America?
That's what I mean. And then you couple that with the way that the SEC are kind of conducting themselves as well. They just look like they're almost at the bottom of the pile when it comes to like crypto and like the way they're adopting this like technology. But I don't think it's too far fetched what you just said there. Reason being because the timing is perfect now for them to do that, and it's almost as if they knew something like this was going to happen within the crypto space, and they've just been waiting for this like event to happen, which it has, and then they can just come in and do something similar to what you just said there. So it wouldn't surprise me. It would not surprise me in the slightest for them to kind of claw the way back into the space, I think.
Yeah, especially like with everything we've talked about, with like the space being set up for mass adoption, and the charts like showing that, well, we're either going to have like a full-blown capitulation, in my opinion, like to numbers lower than anyone thinks, or we're going to go on like a monster rally, like monster. I'm talking from here like 50x. So
yeah, no, I agree. I think as time goes on, that is more likely to happen. Like the volatility of it going either to the upside or downside just increases as time goes on, because obviously the longer we leave it, the more cracks happen, i.e. within crypto or within the actual like traditional finance kind of thing. So, and if there are cracks, which they are in traditional finance, and like you said, the US Congress step in and start building a base for themselves, what does that look like? To me, that just looks like you said there, just absolutely massive, like a balloon underwater kind of thing, if we can try and like describe it to you, just an absolute rocket up to the upside.
Yeah, because all of a sudden it's welcome institutions. Here's a safe place to put your money. This is being regulated by the US, the biggest financial like center in the world, 52% of like equities or whatever. Come on down, lads. Everyone's going to be putting money in there because they need the volatility on the balance sheet, and they're going to see the upside potential.
That's it. And I think, like I said, I think that's what's going to happen anyway. Timing wise, I'm not too sure, but I can see that day coming probably sooner rather than later. As like I said, time goes on. It's just that day just coming closer towards us. But like we said, that's just us speculating a little bit like we always do. But that's what it's all about. You've got to try and speculate and position yourself to obviously profit from it. But yeah, I think we're finished with that for another week. I'm sure, like we said, next week we'll be reporting more stuff on FTX and stuff like that. But obviously it's Ripple swell, literally happening right now. It was happening yesterday as well. Nothing really major has broke out from the actual event, but just some other news come out here as well.
Not yet.
Yes. There's still a lot of time left on Thursday. Thursday's the last day, right?
Yeah, today's the last day.
Yeah, so there's still, it's only noon here at the time of recording this, so there's still a lot of time in the day for them to come out with a potential
come on, boys,
announcement. But let's see what happens with that. But they've obviously another ODL corridor here expanding via a partnership with MFS Africa, So if you don't know who they are, we'll quickly click onto them here. Discover Africa's largest mobile payment gateway here. And as it says in this tweet, I'll probably just have to go back here. Africa holds 70% of the world's $1 trillion mobile money value. So there's a lot of money in this kind of thing. I've never heard of them, and it's just kind of like sheds a lot of light onto it as well.
Yeah, they're huge. It's like they're connecting 35 countries with payment rails through the mobile application. I think it's 800 new payment corridors. And I can't remember the exact stat, but I think the IMF tweeted saying that, or like were quoted in this article saying that that it's the biggest like space for financial innovation in the world, with roughly set $2.7 trillion that will be in the market by sometime soon. I can't remember the exact date, but it's essentially massive. Like it's something like a few thousand people using the application, or institutions or whatever using the app. So it's 35 countries and 800 new corridors.
That's crazy, to be fair. But like, this just reiterates something else that we speak about in our podcast, that week in, week out. Ripple, again, they're still cracking on. They're building that base despite being in a lawsuit with the SEC. They're still continuing their operations as if they've lost a lawsuit, kind of thing. Like, they're not really letting it hinder them too much in terms of like progressing their company and progressing like their overall vision, kind of thing, are they? So it's good to see. It's good to see they're whipping out these partnerships. I feel like every week, we're just reporting something else new, whether it's in our newsletter, Twitter, or whatever it is. Like, we're always reporting on a new Ripple partnership, and like you said, this could potentially be, it's massive now, but like the way, like the IMF tweet that you just mentioned, they can see the future in terms of like they know what they're building towards anyway. So it's great to see. You love to see it.
You do love to see
it. But I think that's all the news, to be fair, for the week. Charts, anything you want to speak about on the charts? Obviously we'll spoke about a lot, like in terms of like TA, a lot of things in our newsletter, so don't know if we want to go too much involved in that there, but
there is one
Bitcoin's
thing
not really
that I do kind of want to mention. If you're obviously on the tether pegs kind of repegged, that's one thing, but there is one thing I do want to mention on the total market cap of crypto, which I did notice, and I don't think I've quite touched on it in the newsletter, so we can touch on it here. If you go to total including Bitcoin, if you look at the previous low, it actually doesn't close the gap between the high of 2017 and the low of there. It's like it's maybe like 1 or 2 trillion off the high, but now we have actually closed that gap with a slightly lower low. It's literally just closed the gap for between the all-time high from 2017 and like the low of this cycle. So that's definitely something to take into consideration. You have to zoom in really far, like, to see and get precise readings, but it has now closed that gap, where even I'm including the wicks as well, like, whereas before there was actually a gap there, and now that gap is closed.
Yeah, that's interesting, to be fair. That's what I mean. The markets, I don't want to go too much into it because I feel like it takes away from the whole point of our newsletter, because I speak about certain things that relate to that point. But markets, they're not really, they've changed too much in terms, nothing really significant. Like if you look at the total market cap, nothing significant's been lost yet. Not saying it might potentially not be, but we're still waiting. Like I said, the markets have calmed down a bit since that it feels like a year, but last week's drama kind of thing. So, but now it's just kind of like teetering around there, trying to make its next move. People are almost like really hesitant to invest, kind of thing. Then you're seeing certain assets fly, and then you're obviously seeing crypto and other things kind of still stay quite like somber kind of thing. So
yeah, and we've seen like capitulation or like some further problems with FTX, and we still haven't seen ultimate panic come out of the market, because I feel like people are despondent. They're already panic sold. So one quick question to you that I want to ask, if you can answer this quick time, because we've been going long on this poddy, is what do you think we need to see lower lows for Bitcoin?
Lower lows for Bitcoin? Well, just literally, like, I think we did those questions at the end of the podcast yesterday, like a USDT like collapse kind of thing. That's the only big significant thing I can think of, because think about it, like, just to cut a long story short, we've seen this massive capitulation in June, right? And if you like measure like the loss of it, it's ridiculous. Obviously, numbers, we've covered it before, kind of thing, like a 43% drop. We see this massive thing happening with FTX, like the second largest, exchange, like collapsing, basically being fraudulent, and we're only seeing a 25% drop. So if that only affects the market, 25% drop, I can't think on top of my head anything other than a USDT collapse, what's going to cause Bitcoin's price to like shoot down to sub 10k. And it's something like I've said that in the newsletter, and I'm happy to come out and say that kind of thing. Like, I don't think there's a lot that can do that, because sentiment's already on the floor.
Yeah, who's gonna sell that?
It's been on the floor for the past like almost 6 months now.
Yeah,
like, it's clear to see that kind of thing. Like, it's going to take something so dramatic to push the prices sub 10k. And like, you can look at on-chain analytics, which we speak about in the newsletter, and tweets that we put out, kind of thing. Nothing else is suggesting a sub 10k Bitcoin kind of thing. So, and I could be eating my words, in a few months' time when Bitcoin's potentially sub 10k. But I'm happy enough to stick my chest out and say I don't think that's going to happen, kind of thing. Just because of like the point I just said there, we've seen a 43% drop here and only a 25, not only, but 25% drop when a second biggest exchange kind of thing turns out to be fraud kind of thing. So
and I'm on your side with that. And then let's just quickly reverse that question. What do you think we need to see us shoot out of this range? Do you think, okay, let's just say the most obvious thing to do now is probably grind and create some sort of bottoming process, but what do you want to see for us to shoot up out of this area?
Well, I think what needs to happen now, like I was saying throughout this episode kind of thing, I said in previous weeks as well, we need like some sort of strong like legislation to come in and kind of make certain rules so people aren't as fearful to invest in the market. Because right now, if the whole the rules stay the same as they are now, people are still going to be hesitant to, like institutions as well, are still going to be hesitant to invest into crypto, because we only have to look at the events of what's happened over the past few months, including FTX, Luna collapse. We can sit here and make a list of all these dramas that have happened over the past few months. But if one thing that eliminates the chances of that happening is having a strong legislation like framework kind of thing. That's what I believe anyway, and I think that's the only way that we can kind of go on to this mass adoption phase. And that's what I think that we need for that phase anyway.
I agree, and we're seeing the start of that in Europe with like the Mika bill, which we haven't covered. Like, it's not, I don't know if it's actually live yet, but that's the start, like at least in Europe. Then hopefully America follows suit, and this is a wake-up call for them. And one thing we haven't actually covered, because we haven't actually got much time left, guys, to be honest, we've been recording for a long time here. And one thing we haven't actually covered is that the Republicans are now in the House, so they're pretty pro-crypto, that we've seen with like Tom Emmer, etc., really pushing crypto. And they've fired Nancy Pelosi, so they're obviously not like scared to take risks straight away. Will there be some pressure on Gensler? Will we see some sort of crypto legislation be brought to the forefront now with FTX and then them coming into the House like straight away? This could really be the catalyst for some potential legislation finally. I hope. I mean, that's just me clutching at straws as well, I guess. There's not been any speak of it really, but like you would hope so.
But yeah, I think we'll leave it on that. Like you said, we've been talking for a while now, so we're going to wrap this week's episode up, guys, and hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Peace up. Anytime down.